Hello, everyone. Welcome to watching sixth episode of Men's Guide to Happiness. My name is Piret, and I'm a happiness expert. But to talk about men's happiness, I want to invite, like those other episodes as well, I want to see men's point of view and have the men talk about happiness. So I have Donovan joining us. Hi, Donovan.
Hey, Parent.
Nice to have you here. And I'm really amazed about the things that you are doing as well. I have like out of so many variety of different guests, and each one of them they're doing something so amazing. But yours is really different as well. Before we get to that, say us a few things about yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an honor to be here. I'm a dad of three teenage daughters. Their range in age from 15, or actually, she's not 15 yet, 14 to 19. So I got 14, 18, and 19. So three teenage girls, and so that's a lot. That's already
Mm-hmm.
amazing, right? So that's probably the biggest thing is my dad life, and then I've been serving teenagers for over 20 years as well. Married for nearly 30 and a couple more years here. So, yeah, that's me.
Awesome, awesome. And that's what I want to focus. So, what is this teenager generation called?
Generation Z. Yeah. So we have the
Now
millennials.
we're into Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many years ago we started putting the letters to it? Do you remember?
Yeah. It was my generation for Generation X. And the idea behind this was a guy wrote a book and he was just like, no, you can't define us. So X out any definition. And so that actually stuck and people are like, oh, X, we must have Y next. So the millennials was
So X,
Y, and
Y,
then it
Z.
just,
What's gonna be the next one then?
I guess we start at X with only three letters to go, and they're gonna go all the way back to A. I guess I don't know.
Oh, that would be funny.
Yeah,
Generation A.
yeah.
Because they started putting the letters, there were millennials, right?
Well, the millennials are Y. Before that is
Oh, there
X.
is.
Before that is
Yes,
like the
that
baby
was actually the
boomers.
Y.
Yeah. So baby
Mm-hmm.
boomers and whatever else. I don't even know the other ones, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's it just was kind of random that they just started putting letters after it. So here
Mm-hmm.
we are at Z.
Mm-hmm. So I want to somewhere in the middle. I want to point more out about this generation and
Sure.
point out that the young people of this generation as well. But that's why the thing as well for the men, for young men now. Let's focus in a little bit for young men. When you work with the young men, do they even think about happiness?
Well, it seems like what I noticed the most is yes, they're like laughing it up, or like it's not. I don't want to generalize completely, but what I would see in the hallways or hear about issues when the boys were involved, it's either they're way too focused in on laughing and having a good time,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be a problem. And then on the other hand, they would just be like in serious fights or raging and angry. And so there's nothing really in between a lot with guys. Like those were the two acceptable things, is they could be laughing it up and happy and having a good time, or it was also okay for guys to be angry because that's a guy thing. When it came to sadness or anything like that, no, we didn't. There was no other things that I would hear boys talk about in general, like 80% of the time. That's kind of the general rule is nope, not really top of mind other than they want the joy, they want the pleasure, they want the happiness, they want to have fun. And so that definitely takes priority generally. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's a bad day, then anger is accepted. Like that was about the range of what guys get that I saw, unfortunately, throughout my years in the high school counseling first.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting to know as well. So they don't recognize their sadness as much.
They
It,
recognize it, but they sort of like it, that's not going to be brought up. They're not going to have, typically, I'll probably talk about this quite a bit, is that their support system's not there for that kind of thing. And they don't generally just voluntarily come and sit down in an office like at the school and just start sharing. Totally, that was the thing that I saw with the young lady students much, much more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. That's what I wanted to ask next. Is there like a big difference between how boys and girls or men and women see happiness?
Well, I think just in emotions in general, yes, and happiness, I would say yes. I would say as a general rule too, like with the young ladies, they all throughout my career, it seems like young women put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they might be the source of their own happiness. Like I made a post one time of like, your daughter is the biggest bully in the school, meaning like she's hating on herself more than anybody else in the
Oh, okay,
school.
okay.
Yeah, it's worse than the drama. It's worse than anybody else could be in the school. So sometimes that's what I noticed a lot with the young ladies is they would be the source of packing so much pressure on themselves, raising those expectations so high. That might be the source of their unhappiness. And then the
Mm-hmm.
source of their happiness seemed to be like put off too far or reserved for maybe, uh, you know, social events here and there, or maybe whatever their fun activity is. But definitely seemed like the boys would, you know, even like take things not serious enough on the other hand. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a huge difference between having a good time and being happy for the boys versus the girls. And it definitely seemed like the general role was girls were putting too much pressure on themselves throughout my, like basically 2001 to now.
Mm-hmm. And does it change when you see now adults or parents? Does it change generationally when you get older for men?
No, it still seems like, I don't know. I think it's maybe our hustle culture or our busy culture. You got like kind of like the idea of a busy mom who can juggle a lot. And, they say that men aren't as good with multitasking. I don't know if that's a bit of an excuse, or they just like are not doing as much as their part. And I would say, generally speaking, there's more and more and more good dads coming up all the time, and that's more of a priority. But yeah, I think it's kind of similar. Like there's a stigma against getting help when you're not happy, especially for a man. And then, I think there's a lot of challenges in life that get only tougher on a lot of levels in our adult lives, especially if we're parents or if we're married and we've got relationship stuff. It actually, can actually be it might seem like those teenage years are tough, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like a lot of times grown-ups just never get on the other side of finding their answers and finding their true happiness and really getting that sense of inner peace and happiness and joy.
Mm-hmm. So when they parenting, do you see with the kid when the kids come? Do they talk about the parenting parents as well on way how parents' emotions create their own emotions?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I wondered like one day, like what percentage of the time is home life impacting the issues I see as a school counselor and life coach? And then what percentage is not impacted by the home life? And it was like 100 impacted by home life and zero not. So there's
Okay.
always some kind of impact. I mean, we're immersed in the environment, even if there's neglect. I mean, it's what I realized
Mm-hmm.
is like, well,
Mm-hmm.
they're getting neglected. So how could it be the home life? And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. That, well, of course, if it's not enough of a connection at home, that is a home life
Yeah.
core problems. So yeah, any kind of range of things really stemmed from the role model, from the parent, and then how that dynamic was for them, I think, as individuals first, then also maybe in the dynamics if there's relationships adult to adult, and then also of course just the interplay between parents and teenage kids, which in the best of times it can be tough.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually that made me think of this question. For the because we're focusing more on the men. So when the teenagers come in the office and they looking for advice on their like something that happens in their family, do they usually reach out probably to the mom? So what would be your advice for the dads to be more involved in that teenagers' lives? What are the teenagers looking for their dads? How they want the dad to be involved?
Yeah, I would say one of the things I learned as a school counselor and then as a life coach is that there's a range of possibilities. And so I created a system where, I've simplified the whole inner world into just traffic light. So I created the green smiley and the yellow meth. The yellow meth face existed because they had all the yellow faces. So that one already existed, but I put a green happy face and then the red frown face. And that's used globally and widely now. That was back in 2014 or 15 when I created that system to demystify the inner world. So I'll literally just have kids point, because boys, they might grunt or they might say, I don't know. Girls too. I mean, teenage kids sometimes don't really open up very easily until they really start to trust you more and more and more. So based on where they'd point, I'm in the green, I'm in the yellow, or I'm in the red, that would help me guide my discussions. But usually, if they're coming to me because they're in the yellow and it's not an emergency. And that's the same thing with parents. It's just kind of middle level stress or middle level emotional challenge. And then, so what I would do is, number one, I would just let them vent. And I'd be like, you good? Some big percentage of the time, that's all they needed. They didn't need one word from me, and they would be good to go. The second thing I would do also starts with the letter V, and that's validate them. If it seems like venting wasn't quite enough and they weren't good to go, then I would just kind of basically restate what I heard. I would help them literally feel seen and heard by just sharing what I heard. Nothing else. No tips, no advice, no ideas, no nothing except I see you and hear you. So venting and validating, that we'll go with the 2 V's. So, and then the third thing I would do, if that wasn't enough, I totally needed to give them one thing. I used to give them maybe 2 or 3 ideas. Maybe you could pick whichever idea you like. And then it's like, nobody ever does more than 2 ideas or 1 idea. So I would figure out one thing, but then my trick was I would ask questions until they'd actually come up with that or something similar or some kind of idea that they could try. Because when we make it their idea as a dad or anybody, but especially as a dad, because my daughters have literally called me a mansplainer. So I don't always follow my own advice. I don't always just let them vent and validate and not share my stuff. I sometimes share my stuff right away and give them my ideas and advice. And then they're like, I don't want it, mansplainer. So the third thing though is like, if you can make it their idea, like, hey, you should go out and maybe, in your social world, like one of the challenges for especially kids is just like, well, how do I deal with this and how do I deal with that? So if we're like, let's say like homecoming's up in our town here in a couple of weeks, and a boy's like, should I make a sign? Should I do this? Should I do that? And they're just maybe nervous overall to go on a date is the real issue. I don't want to tell them and explain to them about nervousness and go into a long thing about that, or tell them you should make a sign and it should say this on it. But what I know is like the kid basically just is, wants to ask somebody, they're interested in going to a dance and they want to have a fun time and they're nervous. And then so I'm going to ask questions that help them come up with the idea like, hey, Mr. Dreyer, I think I'm going to make a sign and it's going to say this on it. And I'm going to hold it up and see if she wants to go. So I know where I'm going, but I'm not about to try and mansplain it. If I'm doing it right, do I do it wrong? Oh, yes. As a dad, most especially. It's different if it's my own kids. But yeah, those are the 3 things. Any dad can just let them vent. And then if that doesn't work, you can validate what you heard. And then if that doesn't work, you can give, help them come up with an idea to solve their own problem. Help them come up with a solution.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful advice. Perfect. I'm trying to point out for the dads as well, you don't have to fix the situation. Like you were just saying, like teenagers, they're not coming to you to fix the situation. They just pretty much need that validation, but the validation comes from letting them vent and then validate it.
Yeah.
And all that. They want your time and presence just to hold that space for them.
Beautiful.
Okay,
right.
let's start focusing a little bit now on a thing that you're helping with parents as well. How to adjust how to adjust those teenagers that who are now graduating, how to help them get ready for the real life after the high school.
Yeah, that's what became my mission. And I, like one time we did a national certification process to say our school was really good. as a school counseling team. So we got that national designation. But one of the problems is we had to like submit everything we did. It was like 150 projects per year. Like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to see that we do this much every single year. That's impossible. So I picked just one out of those 150 as my favorite. And it's helping those kids figure out the real skills. Like, how do we actually get prepared with the things we need? They call them soft skills, but I like Seth Godin calls those soft skills real skills, like the kind of things that all of us need to get better at, whether it's leadership or communication or problem solving, critical thinking, creativity. All those kind of things are so important, but we don't really intentionally get those taught in school classes. We get math, science, English, and social
No,
studies as
not
a
at
foreign
all.
language, and that kind of thing. So I started to fall in love with that because, as I said earlier, like a lot of the problems stem from the family, but just like one key person in the school, like a coach of a basketball team or
Hmm.
a music teacher or an English teacher, or, you know, like it's not always a school counselor either, because we have like huge numbers of kids and we don't see them all every day like the teachers do. But that one point person can make all the difference. And within that, you know, besides the kind of thing that I shared just now for venting and validating and helping them come up with ideas, the other thing that you get with making this one good connection is the ability to, well, where am I going with this? If you got that one point person, like you can overcome some of the maybe gaps in your family life and the other challenges and problems you have, is what I was trying to say. And then within moving forward in your life, you as a student are wondering who can help you gain some of these things that nobody's teaching, especially if it's not happening in the home. And the cool thing is it's not rocket science. I never learned that the kids were having mental health challenges that would make them really angry and maybe take it out on somebody else. Or,
Okay.
you know, like I said, the girls sort of internalize it and take it out on themselves more. None of that really came because it was a severe mental health problem that was complex. That was maybe a percentage of the time, maybe 2 to 5% of the time. But like 95% of the time, there's just missing some basics.
Yeah,
And
everyday
so
things,
everyday things, yeah.
everyday life skills.
That's right. So that coach might be modeling that. That music teacher or art teacher might be modeling it. The you know, whoever it is that that student connects with is able to model it and demonstrate it. And so kids are like, one of the things I love is that kids don't hear a word we say because they're too busy seeing what we do.
Mm.
Seeing
Okay,
what we
that's a good
do
thing to
loud,
say. Yes.
what we do
Hmm.
loudly, what we say, we get called a mansplainer.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. So, and I think the way as well you're pointing out that usually it's somebody in a not usually, but often it's somebody in a school. But now, if you are that, you can be that person. You
Yeah,
can be
as a
that
dad, you
person
are
for
one of those
them.
people. Yeah, like in the yellow section, that's the middle level stress, and that's where we need our support system. Not a mental health professional for the red emergency, and we can't do it on our own, and that's the green level. But in the middle level stress, we can't handle it on our own and self-regulate it. So we need somebody to turn to, our trusted friends, like that are not putting peer pressure on us, and the parents are usually the number one people within that middle section of stress. And so absolutely the parent's one of those people to turn to. And then, like, I didn't stick with it on what my business is now, but the number one thing I really liked is helping those kids get the abilities they need to go out from the nest where they're dependent on their family and parents and this trusted network. They're going to
Hmm.
leave that trusted network and maybe go, like my daughter. Well, I got one daughter in Boston. I got another that flew off to LA. And so she's 19 in LA, and that's crazy and intense. And she's just at like a cinema makeup school. And then my other
Hmm.
one's in college. But when they come back, or when you send them out like that, they need to have the ability to go far like that. Like, I love giving them the ability to go far and wide in life and feel like the guts and the confidence and the courage to take
Hmm.
it on. And so that's what I've really honed in on, is like, how do I help them figure out their career, their lifestyle they'd love to create, and then the impact that they'd like to
Hmm.
create. Both of my daughters, who are 18 and 19, have already kind of created their online presence and platform, and they've
Hmm.
even got these really nice, meaningful slogans behind it. And I tried to help them with their slogans like
Mm-hmm.
talk to the hand, mansplainer.
Mm-hmm.
I got this. But role modeling it, having a business, being a coach, and focusing on just this one thing that they've seen me do, and moving from school counseling to helping kids go from the nest life to their best life.
Mm-hmm.
They do see what I've been doing online and creating my presence. And then one of them's passed me by 1,000,000 miles already. She's blown up on TikTok. And then the other one is growing at a nice steady pace. And it's
Yeah.
really cool to see that they really do need direction. They need some specific help and support. And so that's what I offer. Like that's my gift to the world, is to help with this planning and preparation process that most parents only have their own experience with. And I've sent thousands of kids beyond high school over the years. And it's just my favorite thing to do out of that 150 different things that we had to do in the schools.
Yeah, it's definitely important not to just send the kids out on their own without any knowledge what's going to happen. Just a lot of parents have this attitude like, oh, let them learn their own mistakes. But
Yeah,
why?
it's both.
Why would
It's
they
both.
have to? Like,
Yeah, it's
it's
both.
going to be part of it
Yeah.
anyway. They're
Yeah.
going to do their own mistakes. But you want
Unfortunately.
to help them not to do the mistakes that you did. Let them do their own, but you can give them like, well, this is what I did and this is what happened. So just try to avoid this one. You like understand, but they don't have to. What I'm trying to say, they don't have to go through the suffering and then find another place. Instead,
Yeah.
we can teach them how to avoid the suffering, go to that better life, and then they still gonna have their own challenges and everything, but
Yeah,
they
life
don't
works
have
that
to go
way.
through the low points that we already. Why would they? It's almost like invent your own bicycle. Doesn't matter that we already invented it.
Yeah.
No, we'll give them the bicycle that we invented. Now you make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about clarity. I think that's the big thing, is that there's a lot of indecision. And so they make a choice, then they change their mind, then they change their mind again, change their mind again. Like a huge percentage of people change their mind on their path of like what major they might pick or whatever path they pick after high school. And then when they actually land in a career, most, like 80% of the people, still don't like what they've picked.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why is there's not clarity. So what I help is increase the clarity. And I'm working with the kid several months in now, and we haven't pinpoint nailed even the career yet. The lifestyle pieces, we got a real clear picture on the lifestyle pieces and how his life wants to be supported outside of the career. And then the impact he'd like to make, we kind of can see that really clearly. But we haven't hit the bullseye yet for the first thing he's going to do. It's not what he's going to do for 30 years. So with
Mm-hmm.
Generation Z, there's going to be so many more changes. They're happening all the time now, that it's just like, figure out what you're going to do first with clarity. It's totally
Mm-hmm.
okay to change your mind. But what I see is people are in like, life's cruel. It's like life puts us, the job opening opens, if we're not careful and intentional about it, we get the worst possible place that we could, that's a total misfit for who we are. And life is like trying to tell us, hey, be more careful about thinking this through. So when kids gain the clarity with me, they might have 10, 20, or 100 different things that will fit them, but at least they're picking from the 10, 20, or 100 that will fit, instead of just being totally confused. And that's what I find a lot of times is even the valedictorians. I had this one kid, he told me what he was going to do, and he didn't know the week before. And I was like, why do you want to do that? It was like financial advisor, and he gave an answer, and I was like, well, why? And like he gave an answer, and I was like, why? He's like, Mr. Dreyer, you sound like a 5-year-old. And I was like, why? Because you keep saying that. And I was like, well, look, you're putting like less thought into your whole future, because you just told me last week you didn't know what you wanted to do, than you would put into like any of the 50 papers you've done in the last couple of years. This is not
Mm-hmm.
right. So I'm driving deeper with this why questioning, so you actually legitimately figure out why. And if you don't know, then you should do some more work, because you haven't even put much effort into this compared to, like I said, one school assignment, and that is not enough when it comes to getting clear on your future. So that's why I'm testing you And basically he gets like an F, a D minus, right? So he just like
Mm-hmm.
made something up. I think I'll make money as a financial advisor. So Mr. Dreyer, I'm going to be one of those. No, valedictorian. I'm totally fine sounding like a 5-year-old if it's going to help somebody avoid just a super, 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 super common mistake. People just don't gain the clarity. They don't put enough intentional effort into figuring out what they're going to do next. If we're 18, what you're going to do next. And then I've done a lot of
Mm-hmm.
business coaching, and people might be 40 to 80 and they're trying to figure out what they want to do next. So regardless, I love helping people figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm. Like you were saying, they not sounding like 5-year-olds. That question why is so important that everybody should ask it, especially for teenagers. That's, or not the teenagers, but the thing that when we started our, I would think of myself, when we started our journey on life after high school, we didn't ask why. We just kind of went with what was popular or what
Mhm.
was other people were doing. And most adults as well now, the previous parents and the generations, they didn't ask why. They just go what they see everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And I think that question why is they might say 5-year-old question, but that's actually life through every year question.
It is totally. Yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times some of the most complex things are they have simple answers, simple solutions.
They do. I always say the same thing. Life is actually really simple. The problem where we created, we have made it difficult and complicated instead of taking it as simple as it is. So it's
Yeah.
actually us human who made it complicated, and we think of it even more complicated than it is in
Hmm.
our heads. This overthinking that we add to it.
No doubt.
Hmm. So, how about Donovan about yourself? Like, what are your happiness? What is your
Yeah,
happiness?
well, I think, so for me, it's the same thing. I'm always kind of looking at my own inner world, green, yellow, or red. And, so I've had times when we had tragedies happen at the school and I'm helping as a school counselor. Well, I don't want to like hate on my profession and not actually get counseling when I'm in the red. And so
Okay.
when you deal with supporting and helping other people through grief, all school year long after an intense thing that happens, uh, I noticed like I need the help now. I've helped everybody else out. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then you need counseling. You need to go and have
Yep.
somebody who you can vent and validate and get answers and get solutions put together from, and then just basically get back to normal. Right. So I needed to get myself back to normal because I don't want to go to the next school year traumatized or jaded or burned out. And I think burnout's a real thing. So when you're up there and you're burning out and it's in the red, it's time to get some professional help. So I've done that a couple of different times. Wait, many times. I mean, I'm almost always supported. And then for myself in the yellow zone, what I think here's the biggest thing I think is missing in this world, and it's a lack of enough support. Or that's
Mm-hmm.
not what's missing. That's the issue. The issue is there's a lack of enough support for the middle level stress. When we don't
Mm-hmm.
need a therapist, we don't need professionals, we don't need an emergency to be solved. The problem is we go from green straight to red because there's not enough in the yellow level in the middle. And so I rely on doing something with a friend on a weekly basis, doing something to have fun as a family on a weekly basis or every day, even in the family, like the nuclear family. And then I rely on doing things like I've been a vegetarian since 1990, and I've done yoga, and I've done so many different things to study who I am, and then to do that personal development. I've always invested in support. So at that middle level, we can hopefully find somebody that's awesome that wants they let us vent and validate and give us answers and solutions.
Mm-hmm.
But strategically, I've had many business coaches. I've had mentors and coaches before they were even called a coach. Even going back to my teenage years, my first person I worked with was my dad's spiritual teacher. And so I had a session or
Okay.
two or three with that person. And then I was like, I don't know if this is a fit for me. And I found somebody else in the community that was like perfect, worked with her for a year. And that was in the 90s. And then later on, I worked with a coach for 4.5 years on when I was getting my business started,
Mm-hmm.
4.5 years in a row of having that support. So I'm rarely not supported for my middle level. So that's either, you got middle level stress, but it's also proactive to avoid going straight from green to red. So if I'm always having support built in around me, even investing in it, then I'm more likely to push the yellow stuff back to green. Or when I can't think things through myself, I've got somebody to lean on and bank on. So I'm always banking on that support. I think most everybody, I've done this exercise in my business coaching of like talking about the sales conversation, how that can be really profound. And I have people raise their hand when I tell them just how well I hold space, kind of like I do with the teenagers. Hold
Mm-hmm.
that space, give them the chance to really be seen and heard and understood, and then help them figure out their vision and their goals and their challenges. I'm like, how many people will have at least one person like that in your life? And almost everybody raises their hand. How many of you have two? About half the hands go down. And when I ask, okay, how many supporters do you have that you can really lean on, and maybe it's mutual and they can lean on you too? How many of you have 5 or more people like that you can count on? Like I just described, I do a sales conversation and nobody has their hands up of more than 5. And I'm like, can you see how like powerful a sales conversation could be if you actually are serving somebody well? Like you'll be a top 5 person in their life just to see if your services will fit them. So it's all about support for me. And then the emotional regulation, that's where the personal development is also very intentional. I just want to get better and better and better at beefing up my ability to make bigger things less stressful to me. So our green level, it varies depending on the person, on our ability to have patience, emotionally regulate. So I'm just making my stronger, like capability around patience probably is the biggest thing I've gotten from working with teenagers all these years. And the more patient I am, then I can handle stresses that most people would be in the yellow with. And if they're pushed beyond that, then I'm still able to hang in there and help people out. So support.
Mm-hmm. That's important for everybody, for parents and teenagers, and for young kids now listening, young men listening. And I also want to point out, like you were saying, just going to a therapy and going to there, it doesn't mean anything's wrong.
Mm-mm. Well,
That's what
it
you have
does
to
mean
understand.
something's wrong, but there's
Well,
not a
what I mean,
stigma, right? There's not a stigma against getting help
yeah,
when you
they,
need it.
they think that they have
Yeah.
to go there because something is completely wrong. You go there to get the support for your questions. Well, I mean, there's some people have this idea that I can't go because then other people will think there's something wrong.
Yeah, and that's right. That perspective is why we have a stigma. I might lose
Mm-hmm.
my job, or I might be thought of as this type of kid, or I might get this label or that label, and things will be worse. So people
Mm-hmm.
end up not getting support and not getting professional help when it's an emergency because they're worried it might be even worse. And that's legit because we've kind of created a serious stigma. We got this rugged individualism as the American way, and I totally am all for that. Let's empower the heck out of our teenagers and have them be even better individual civilians and citizens than we have now.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, we're going to be yellow or red. And at that point, no amount of trying to work it out on your own is going to work when the green level is what we can do on our own. Yellow, we need an everyday person. And red, we need somebody that's a pro and they're going to be able to help us in an emergency. So when people neglect those emergencies, I mean, I've literally gone to funerals for students that didn't get the help they needed.
That's really sad as well. But that's unfortunately, it is true what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's been always happening like that
It's
when
a
the
big deal.
person.
Yeah, your topic is a big, big deal.
Mm-hmm. It's really important for people to understand those feelings and start getting attention, paying attention of having that happiness in their life.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
that's the question. And for Generation Z, also to think about like when they starting to leave their nest, starting to think about like what you were saying, what would be their happy life,
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah,
their
let's
happy
let's
life would look like.
visualize it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
And that and how would you put that question why in there with now visualizing and generating, creating your new happy life, leaving your home.
Yeah, that's
I
actually the
mean,
handout I've got on my website. So you got my website,
mm-hmm,
getreadycoaching.com, and the handout is to help kids dream. And one of the big problems is we tell kids like, you're never going to make money at whatever, or that's too big, nobody does that. I'm the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Let me, like, I had this girl, she was in the junior year and I was about to do a presentation in the classroom. I was like, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And she's like, I'm gonna be a lawyer, Mr. Dreyer. It's like, oh, you don't sound too excited about that. And man, you were amazing in the musical last week. I know you weren't in the lead, but you cracked me up. And she's like, oh, thanks, Mr. Dreyer. I was like, do you ever think about that as a possibility? Oh, Mr. Dreyer, I can't do that. That was great in high school, but my parents would be so, they would not be all about that. And I'm like, well, like, this is like your nature. Like, you totally are into that world, and like, that's your wheelhouse. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, look, let's imagine you're 40 something, and I'm like, I'm out there getting business coaching galore and
Mm-hmm.
trying to break free of the school system so I can do my thing. One thing, not 150 things. And I was like, all right, so imagine you got a family of 5 and you suddenly get that bug again to think about, oh, I regret not going for it. I regret being a lawyer and I'm so bored. And so imagine that. And now look at you. Right here, you got nothing to lose. You don't have a family of 5. You're 18 years old, 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You could seriously consider this. And then if you face plan on it, and it doesn't work out, you got plenty of time to go to plan B. But what you've done is you've kind of thrown plan B in place of plan A. And why don't
Mm-hmm.
you think about going for it? She's like, Mr. Dreyer, I'm gonna go home and tell my parents tonight I'm majoring in theater. I was like, oh no, what'd I just do? But it was a power 2 minutes. It was
Mm-hmm.
a power 2 minutes. And she totally did go for it. Her parents were not down with it. And I had to talk to mom. And then
Mm-hmm.
later on, they're like, oh, dad's not going to agree with none of this. He's not too
Mm-hmm.
happy about this switch of plans. But then
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks later, she comes running up, Mr. Dreyer, my dad's finally on board. He sees like, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. And he's fully supportive. And then all the like Facebook posts after that are about, oh, thanks, mom and dad. You're so supportive. Blah, blah. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what about me? I had that like 2 minutes that changed your life. It's whatever. I mean, I don't need that glory, but it's a great story to
Mm-hmm.
illustrate how important it is to have that visualization, to have that game plan and plan it out. So a lot of times we don't know what to say. I did a post last week, like, kids are saying, I don't know all the time. What do you do when they say, I don't know several times? So my client did that to me and I'm like, oh crap. So I was like transparent and made a post about that. And basically sometimes we're just going to hit a wall, and it
Mm-hmm.
is what it is, even if we got 20 plus years of experience. But I created like 6 questions, 6 different areas of life. You can ask a specific question. Don't do all 6 of them in one dinner time. You might be like throwing too many things at your teenager, but you can pick your spots and go through the handout that I've got, Dare to Dream, because a lot of people don't dare to dream unless they really get somebody behind them that's supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the handout. So you can download that right on my site.
Mm-hmm. That's really important. That's for the viewers. Download it and do it for sure, because that's gonna change your life. So
Pretty simple, but again, those simple things are profound.
simple things that's gonna change our life. So for the teenagers as well, to get out in a life, what would be the advice for the parents to help the kids to see what is there after high school?
Well, yeah, get that document and that'll get the conversation started. But so if we're lacking this support, beef up that support system, boost up that support system. I just saw a post yesterday from, was this a former client? Let me think. It was a Facebook post. No, it was a former teacher, a teacher I used to work with. And I was just like this, like, you cracked the code. She just talked about, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And I got
Mm-hmm.
this person, that person, the uncle and the aunt, and the friend, and all these people surrounding my son because it's so hard. It was like really about
Mm-hmm.
how tough it is if you're a kid that's in middle school, a boy that's in middle school, how you're supposed to like act like everything's okay, or there's not really a place to just kind of address like, this is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So she just talked about how all this layering of support she put around them. Like, I was like, you cracked the code. You got the support all boosted up around him. This is exactly what you need to do, and you're doing it. So definitely everybody should in the future be able to say, of course, I've got 5 people I can turn to for venting and validation and helping me generate ideas and strategize. And create my life plan. I got 10 or 20 or 50. So just start intentionally helping your teenager build up their support system, especially with this transition. One of the moms I'm working with right now, she said the number one thing you offer is you're an outside neutral person that doesn't have all our family history.
Mhm.
And now that he's transitioning and trying to wean himself away from being like fully dependent on the family to fully independent out in the world, it's really nice, she said, to have somebody that's a specialist and expert who can be part of that support system. So it doesn't have to be me, but just find one or two or three or four or five more people that with that transition, you're going to know that somebody's pouring in. I'm watching like Deion Sanders, the coach of Colorado here. I'm in Colorado, watching Deion Sanders like hug his players in the football field and wiping off his son's blood from, getting clocked in the mouth. And just like these things that are supportive and powerful on just the simplest ways. So be out there pouring into your teenager and having other people that you trust or they trust to pour into them as well. And that's really the key to happiness. One of the big keys is that support.
Mm-hmm. I want to point out one thing that you're helping as well for parents is the parents, they don't know themselves how to understand nowadays. Everything is changing so much that the things that they were thinking were good in their life, their generations, they not gonna work for this new generation anymore. They're those jobs that they were profitable now in the past for the parents that we are now. Those are not going to be the jobs that our kids are going to be doing. So
Right.
even now, that even the kids who are teenagers now, 10 years from now, there's going to be a completely different. Online things that I was saying, they have to have online presence. All of them
Yeah,
gonna have to
absolutely.
have online presence, which like previous generations they didn't have to. So the previous generations and the parents now they have to understand that they're raising kids for a different type of life. And one thing that I wanted to say, you say they wanted to be the parent to be the kid to be a lawyer. They could be that in the future there's only AI lawyers. So what your child's gonna do if all the court's gonna be done with AI? Because AI can just go back in there may be one judge or something, but AI can go back and go in all those records in the paperwork much faster than a real person can go. They can get like dates and updates and everything. So lawyer can be a job that is not going to exist 10 years from now.
Might
Not
not.
spirit for sure. It's not going to exist the way it exists now.
For sure, it's not going to exist the exact same way. That's exactly
Mm-hmm.
right. So adaptability just came to mind as another one of those real skills from Seth Godin. And that's primary as well. Just being able to grow up to be a person that's going to be flexible and adaptable. And like when I'm working with people in the business realm, 40 to 80 years old, they just aren't as adaptable. They're like, it's like the old saying,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And it is. So we should start way earlier. And if the industrial era is over and our school system is more like designed still for the industrial era, if that's over, we've got to like, people are talking about homeschooling, deschooling, unschooling. Really, it's about individualizing our game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then our game
Okay.
plan is step one. How many years is it going to last? I don't know. It depends on how long that career lasts before it vanishes and AI does it. So I think the career, lifestyle, and the last piece that I really focus in on is impact. So we've
Okay.
got all of these things that our kids are inheriting, and they've got to be able to figure out the solutions. We didn't do such a good job. We've just kind of like made a lot of our problems worse in recent years, and then worse and worse and worse. So there's a lot of like issues that people are just butting heads on. Generation Z's got to have to like make this all like sustain. They're going to have to make the earth sustain. And we're going to have to let each other sustain and not like hurt each other, harm each other, take each other out. So they've got some really, really, really big things to solve. And honestly, it would be really cool if, if they solve the idea of like, what if a lot of the jobs just go away? What would we do with all that time? How would we, be of value to each other? Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's work out our issues. Like, let's take care
Mm-hmm.
of these social issues and get along better. And, maybe somebody's just going to be greedy and take everything. If they're the one that owns all the AI lawyers and all the AI everything, they're going to be greedy. But I don't think so. Gen
No.
Z is out here talking about, like, I really noticed after the Sandy Hook shooting, Emma Gonzalez, who's now ex Gonzalez, she said, look, we don't trust you. We don't think you're going to keep us safe. We don't think you're going to care about us. So we're going to take care of it on our own. But then, I know about grief, and like shortly later, she's melting down again. Then she's back on top of the world and melting down and back on top of the world. So they totally need people they can trust, being the support underneath their big expectations. They totally can make crazy big impact. Greta Thunberg, Emma Gonzalez, David Hogg, Malala, Amanda Gorman with that speech, Coco Gauff winning the US Open recently. They got more going on than the tennis racket. And they're just teenagers, and they've got things that are like, not just like being the Beatles making, rock come onto the scene, or being Run DMC making hip hop come onto the scene. They're out here in these days wanting to be that next difference maker, wanting to be that agent of change, wanting to be somebody who's going to help us solve our issues. And there's people combating, and they hate this side and the other side hates that side. Gen Z is about solving that. I totally believe in them, and they're not going to do it on their own. They're just not going to do it on their own. They need that support system. They need their elders, and they need the wisdom, especially if that wisdom can be put in the form of a question like the game Jeopardy. We don't always need to be telling them the answers. We might know the answers. Just remember to put it in the form of a question, and then Gen Z is going to crush it out here.
I have an 8-year-old right now, and for a when she was already younger, you're saying that why question. We've actually played this kind of game where we ask why. Doesn't matter. We have usually a limit how many times we ask from each other is 5 or something, but it can be something. Only thing you can't say is I don't know. You can make up silly answers, like something like you'll ask, why isn't the sky red? And you can make up, because nobody painted it yet or something. You can make up silly questions, silly answers. Only thing, and you ask like 5 times or something, limit from each other why. It can be real questions as well. Depends what we feel like.
I like
but
that.
The thing is, like, only thing you can do is say I don't know, just
That's
for fun. It's a fun game.
I love it.
So cool. Well, Donovan, tell us more about your business, and I'm going to put your website out for all the viewers. All the links for Donovan are in the description as well. And tell us what your business actually is.
Yeah, well, for me, like I said, I pick one out of those 150 things that school counselors got to do every year. The reason why is because I actually didn't start off knowing I was going to be a helper of people and a school counselor and a life coach. There wasn't even such a thing as a life coach. I thought of the idea back in the 90s when I was getting that mentorship. I was like, this is what I really want to do. I want to help people out with life. This is fun. This is amazing. So, they have motivational speakers and personal development gurus. But, now that I'm coaching, it all started with getting my career wrong. So I was at Western Michigan. I didn't know what to do. I took one of those tests. I bubbled in 250 questions. And I was actually worse off after taking the personality assessment, because it said I could be a pilot. It said I could be a writer. It said I could be a police officer, a lawyer, and a chef. I was like, how did this help me? Yep. How am I better off? How am I how am I less confused? How am I more clear? So spitting out those specific ideas is not what I do. That kid that still hasn't hit the pinpoint center of the bullseye, I got 2 exercises that he's been working for weeks to get it done right. But anyway, I was like, well, it must be meant to be. Western Michigan is one of the only 3 places in the country that has an aviation program. It must be aviation. I bet that was just on everybody's thing, because they want people in the program. Because not only do you have to pay for the college, you got to pay for the instructors and all this extra fees and whatnot for that program. And I'm sure it's a super, super expensive program. So that probably just goes on everybody's personality assessment automatically. And so anyway, I was like, oh, it must be meant to be. So I picked it. I stuck with it. I flew airplanes and, got lots of certificates. So I built up a whole bunch of college debt. Plus I had flight instruction debt. So I had all that. And then I finally did an informational interview. One more big tip for today, parents. If you want to help your kid be happy, don't let them go into a whole career without doing an informational interview. Do that first. You could be 8 years old and start your informational interviews. What do you do? Why do you do it? Your 8-year-old's ready to go. What do you do? Why?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, I didn't do this until I graduated from college. I spoke to an airline captain, and this guy was on fire about his profession. And I was like, oh man, there was no Uber, but I was like, this is like going to be like more like a taxi cab in the sky for me. You don't want to be bored in the sky because that's not safe. Plus, you got all those people behind you. That's not very respectful to be up there bored because their life is in your hands. And so in that moment, I was like, I'm not flying. I kind of selected no go. Like no go is a pilot's term. Like we're either going to fly today or not fly today, go or no
Mm-hmm.
go. And so I was like, man, I'm no go right here, right now. I'm walking out of Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm not doing this. I could come back to it later. I got all the
Mm-hmm.
background and everything I need, but I need to do some soul searching. So I did that. Then the Columbine shooting happened. And I'm like, I'm going to go get in the trench and be a frontliner. We didn't have frontliners, and especially not thinking about frontliner being in the school. But when the Columbine shooting happened in the late 90s, I was like, I'm going to do that. Got my school counseling degree. Fast forward to now. And what I'm doing now is helping kids really get clear on what they're going to do first. Not forever, not for 30 years till they retire. What do you want to do first? What's the vision of your lifestyle? What's the vision of that career? What do you need to get that career? What's the impact you want to make? What's kind of that purpose? I want to help them discover the purpose. So, yeah. And so it's like your passion and what you want to do for the career is like a puzzle piece. And then the matching puzzle piece is your purpose. If there's a place
Mm-hmm.
out there in the world for you to do your thing and somebody's going to want that service, that's a match made in heaven. And I think that's one of that big keys of happiness. I'm showing up on a Monday morning in life now. I don't care if it's Monday. I love what I do. Wednesday,
Yep.
hump day. I don't care about hump day. I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
TGIF. I don't care what day it is. I love what I do. I get to help
Mm-hmm.
people figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives, or at least what they
Mm-hmm.
want to do next, as I said. And that is so powerful. And I know when I saw that captain light up, that airline captain, I was like, I need me some of that. I need to have my soul searched.
Mm-hmm.
So I figure out I bet I got one of those in there for me. That's just as exciting for me as flying is for him. Flying, I'm not going to lie, gave me some confidence and it was pretty fun
Mm-hmm.
for somebody 18 to 22. But man, I finally found that thing that lights me up like that airline captain, and it's helping kids figure out what they want to do, lifestyle, career, impact, and then also what they need to do right now to take care of their stress in the current moment. The regular stresses of 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then even beyond. I got college kids that I'm serving. I really love the kids that are like 18, 19, 20. They're super receptive, like sponges, to get this
Okay.
stuff figured out. Like they really want to get it figured out. And they know like, hey, I got to get this major picked, or I'm not, I'm taking a gap year from college. I don't know if I'm going to go to college. Or my daughter goes to special effects makeup school. She got great grades and crushed it. Would be the prototypical, you should go to college type of kid. Same with that other kid that went in, ended up working for Disney, the one that went into, I want to be an actress instead of
Mm-hmm.
be a lawyer. She went off and worked for Disney, not lawyer, not at a law
Mm-hmm.
firm. And my daughter out there doing special effects makeup in LA. So really getting this thing that lights us up, man, that's what I'm about. So thanks
Mm-hmm.
for letting me share what that's all about. And it starts with a free call. Every parent that wants to consider my coaching services, first I'll talk to the parents for free. Then we also have to talk to the kid for free because both of them have to be on board with
Mm-hmm.
getting my support with my teen takeoff or my Gen Z takeoff program.
Mm-hmm. I like it, Spirit. It's so important. Everybody should get into it. If you're a parent and you don't know how to get your kids out in the life, uh, Donovan's here to help you, you because they need that support. And if you're not sure, because not everybody is, like you said, somebody is a pilot, you know,
Mm-hmm.
pilot might not be able to tell the child how to find what they like to do. Everybody has their own purpose and gift
Mm-hmm.
that they have. And it's, as a parent, you can help your generation G, no, C,
A,
or
B, C, D, E, F, G. We're on Z. We're all the way at the end.
so, yeah, to get into the, to get to build the life that's going to make them happy, you know, get them straight, like from the beginning, so they don't have to go, they're going to have their own challenges, but give them the tools to make it easy.
Yep.
So that's great. Thank you, Donovan.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for all the viewers. So, and hopefully, I'm hoping there was a lot of Generation Z
Mhm.
uh, viewers as well. So, if your parents can get you a coach, maybe there's a way you can get your own coach as well. But you can ask your parents to contact you with a coach. So that would be
Absolutely. Yeah. I
good
start
as
with the
well.
parents.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
start with the parents, and the parents can do those 6 questions too. If you're thinking about, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what I want to do next in life. Well,
Mm-hmm.
great. You go through those questions too. So each one of those sections is just a part of life, an aspect of life. And you can ask yourself more than one question in each of the aspects or departments of life.
Mm-hmm. And getting one last thing before we say bye is getting help doesn't mean that anything is wrong. Getting help means that you having a support person helping you make the decision.
Yeah, look,
So,
we're all getting help every single day. We're
mm-hmm.
either
We
doing
need.
self-help because we got something that's small and we can handle it. We're handling it. Today we're getting help, or we're getting help from a support system, somebody we lean on and we don't even really think about it, or maybe they lean on us and it's back and forth and it's mutual. But third, if there is a problem, there is a problem. Like, it's legit that sometimes there's something wrong. And if it's emergency level something wrong, we got to get way better about just admitting something seriously wrong. A lot of people say, I saw the red flags. And that's like how I came up with the red, is because
Mm-hmm.
people had always called the emergency stuff red flags. And it's like, okay, red light, yellow light, green light. There's a lot of other emojis. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not helpful for us to not just think about, look, I'm good to go. I'm keeping myself happy, or I'm not there and I need somebody to help me make me happy, or I'm in a serious trouble and I need pro help. So it's self help, somebody we trust helping us, or pro help. Every single day, maybe every single moment, we're getting help. Not because there's something wrong necessarily, but there's always life to just process. There's always support that we need to solve something. We're always solving something. So maybe it's a good way to just think about, what's the one of the three things I need to do to solve this? I need myself, I need somebody I trust, I need a pro. That's it. Like, all those other emojis are nice for nuance and really getting a good feel for somebody. But the first thing is, I needed this to triage people like coming into my office and I didn't know, and they just needed a point at part of my board. And even if they didn't say a single word, like a lot of the boys wouldn't, they would just point, point,
Mm-hmm.
point. And I would have a really good sense of like, what's their week been like? What's their like last few days been like? And that would help me know exactly what to do. Either step back, let them vent, validate, or step in and give them some support, like on the coaching side, or what, this is an emergency, we got to refer you out to get some help outside of school.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Donovan, before I end, I asked each all of the questions. What are some simple things or activities in like everyday life, or just general simple things that make you feel happy?
Yeah, little simple things. I mean, like I said, I've done yoga. I've done, making a decision to do something personal development wise, like eating differently. That was a big deal. Making a change to my eating. But the simple things, even like taking a breath, like it was beautiful today. I went out with my friend for
Mm-hmm.
coffee this morning. Beautiful fall day in Colorado. Getting outside and getting fresh air. I mean, with the little elementary school kids, I had 3 years to work at the elementary school level as a school counselor before I was done in the schools. And I would just say, a breath and a break. If
Mm-hmm.
you're like getting in an argument, like, don't even try to work that out right now. Go take a break, or
Mm-hmm.
take a breath. If you can't think of anything else, just take a nice deep breath, especially out in that fall crisp air. Keep it ridiculously simple. So that the two B's, a breath and a break.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. We're gonna end on that. So thank you, Donovan, and
You're
thank you
welcome.
everybody for watching. Uh, thank you, hopefully a lot of Generation Z watching and create a better world. That's what I'm telling them.
Nice.
And for everybody, for our generation as well, it's like we don't have to wait them to going back. We don't have to wait them to create a better world. We have to create the better world as well.
Yep, it's a team effort. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Donovan.